Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. About 5-6 lines on the top.
Beautiful.
So the Gemara was discussing the Shiloh that we started off with, that can you sell the Evet for Knas or not? I said the Gemara said that we have a problem because, let's say you do sell him for the Knas, right? So what's the chance that he's going to get hit by an ox? Right? And even if he gets hit by the ox, right? Me'echa teisi, that he's going to be paying the Knas Dilma Maidu Miftar, right? So Gemara says it's different than a davar shel bal olam. Here, the characters of the story are bal olam. Just the story isn't bal olam,
right?
Because mehecha teisi, the whole story is going to happen.
Right.
They say as
point.
What?
Rajba makes that point.
Yeah, and really the Gemara says like that, but you have to really understand it. But the Gemara says that this is Ela kagoin peres dekel the hashtami alesnahu. The peres dekel are not here yet. Aval hocha hakoi shor hakoi evet. Over here we got the shor and we got the evet. So what's the halacha?
Oh no, sorry. Let me rephrase that. The Rajba asks about the Knas. The Knas isn't there. That's what the Yikr is.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So the evet, right? It's like the Gemara said elsewhere. You have the this and you have the that, and you have everything else. But like the main player is missing. It's like you can't do anything about it, right? Meaning you have the evet, you have the shor, but the Knas is not here.
Right.
So what's the halacha? This is where we're holding. So Omer Baba Toshuma. Let's bring a ride from an interesting story about Achilas Truma, which we touched on a little bit yesterday. So the pasuk says, "V'lid bias," that somebody who lives in the house, somebody who's born in the house, can eat Truma. Ma Talmud Loimar. What's the pasuk coming to teach me? Im kinin kesef eichel yilid bias the kol shekain. If something that I could buy with kesef can eat Truma, meaning an evet can eat Truma, so certainly a yilid bias can eat Truma. So the Gemara no, because Ilu Kain, if this is true, here you see I'm a kinin kesef sheyesh by shava kesef eichel. I feel it bias yesh by shava kesef eichel. So just like a kinin kesef, meaning because if the svara is that there's this kol shekain, that if a kinin kesef could eat, then certainly a yilid bias could eat, right? So I would say the ma kinin kesef sheyesh by shava kesef, a kinin kesef I can also do something with shava kesef, right? And that thing that I'm buying with shava kesef can eat truma. Av yilid bias sheyesh by shava kesef eichel. So too a yilid bias that has shava kesef, meaning that he's a yilid bias through shava kesef, he can also eat truma. And how do you know that even if he's not worth anything, which would mean Zok Rashi that he's a mukha shchen, so he's no value in the marketplace, no one's going to hire him. So Talmud Lemer yilid bias b'kol makom has nothing to do with the monetary value of the yilid bias. It has to do with the fact that he's yilid bias. So don't make a kol shekain from kinyan kesef. Vaydayin ani oimer, but maybe I'll still say yilid bias. Ben sheyesh b'shava kesef, ben sheyesh b'shava kesef eichel. Maybe I'll say that regardless of whether he has shava kesef or he doesn't have shava kesef, he can still eat truma. Say kinyan kesef yesh boy, shava kesef eichel, and by shava kesef ain't eichel. Maybe it's only a regular kinyan kesef. The kinyan kesef yesh boy, so shava kesef eichel, and by shava kesef ain't eichel. So if there's no, that's dafka kesef and not shava kesef, right?
Is that the determining factor, basically? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Not.
Right. So Zak the Gemara, Talmud Leimar kinyan kaspa v'yilid beisay. The Gemara, the pasuk says it together. Kinyan kaspa and yilid beisay, it goes together. My yilid bias avol pi she'en yishava klum. Just like we said before, the yilid bias, he's going to eat truma regardless of his status, meaning even if he's not going to be able to be sold in the marketplace, oichel, he can still eat truma. Av kinyan kaspa avol pi she'en yishava klum oichel. So even an eved that's not really worth anything, because I don't know, let's say he was in a car accident and he can't walk, or he
can't work.
He fell down the flight of stairs and he's broken. I don't know.
Right.
It could be anything. But he's not, like Rashi says, he's a mukha shchen, so he can't do anything. It's very interesting because mukha shchen, it's not just that he has pimples. The Gemara says that it was some kind of like the body's basically, it's some kind of disease that the body's basically rotting away.
Wow.
And like the limbs are falling off.
Wow.
I don't want to get into gory details over here looking like more ksubas.
Never.
What?
Maybe what we know is.
Yeah, maybe. After as I'm in sort of thing, the Gemara talks about it in Ksubis. The Gemara says, the Gemara's talking about what when you're looking into shidduch for somebody, so you want to know what the person's about. You want to know what the person's like, right? So if he's a mum shabagolis, then you'll know. But mukashkin, a person's going to say, I can't live with such a person, right? Because it's a dangerous disease. And that's where the Gemara talks about the Balaras on with Rabbi Shimon Levi, that he would sit and learn with them anyways. He says the Torah is going to protect me. He wasn't afraid of getting the diseases. Okay.
So we're saying we're qualifying basically that but to the extent that he has that condition, that
I mean, it doesn't change. It doesn't.
it's less because he has no. It's lessening his value to so much so to the extent that it's not qualifying for him. It's for him to eat teruma.
That's what you would think, but that's why the pasuk puts it together. That kinyan kasbei v'yilid beisa. That it doesn't matter the monetary value of the eved. It's just like yilid beisa. That my yilid bias avla pisha enu shava klum orichel. Even though the yilid bias, even though he doesn't have any worth, can still eat truma. Av kinyan kasbei avla pisha enu shava klum can still eat truma. So, frankly, Gomar Bisal Kadaitach, if you would think that Eved Shemacher Rabbi Leknas Macher, Mi Ika Avda Delem is Davin Leknasa. So, if you're gonna, is there a Havamina to say that an Eved that the master sold him for the Knas, which was our original Shiloh, which we started yesterday, that he's gonna be sold, Mi Ika Avda Delem is Davin Leknasa? Lufi, what we're saying, any kind of Eved can be sold over here. So, what's the tzad that he won't be able to work with Knas? Right? Avadi should be able to take the Shleshim Shel Eved. So Zakti Gemara there is a case. Why? Because Ika Evet Treifa. There's an Evet that's a Treifa. And you wouldn't, in such a case, you wouldn't pay a Knas. Meaning because, technically speaking, it doesn't really matter the value of the Evet. See, here's where...
not going to be able to work.
Right, but it doesn't really, when it comes to the world of Knas, it doesn't really matter because the Torah says you got to pay this amount regardless of the monetary value and the status of this Evet. Because he's an Evet, he's got to pay Shleshim Shel Evet. But now, would you have a case? This is Gemara's question. Would you have a case of an eved that does not have any value, even klape the knas?
Exactly.
Right. So Zakti Gemara, yes, you do have that. Ika eved treifa. What's the story with the treifa? Zak Rashi shein mishalman alav knas. You wouldn't pay a knas. Why? Because similar to a svar that we said yesterday in the Gemara. Because the gavrak telahu, he's a dead man. He's walking around, but he's a dead man. Right. So he's not. Right. We saw a similar thing to yesterday. What did we say yesterday? But like this, that he's.
But to the extent, even notwithstanding that dead man walking, the guy still has some value. I mean, the guy could watch, he could work, something.
So he's asking a good question. Right, we saw that yesterday by Shabbos Gdela, Shabbos Ktana, that even if the guy broke his foot, he could still be the Shemri Kishun, be the cucumber watcher, right? But over here in the world of, once we enter into the world of Treifa, that means the guy, he's 98% down.
They wrote him off already, basically.
Yeah,
the guy's
which is interesting. Because there's a shaila in the Gemara, treifa chaya, treifa eina chaya, right? Maybe by behem is different than adam. Adam is le mazla, behem less le mazla. Noach became a treifa in the teva.
Because there's no nezik by. I mean, there's no shevet by animals. So
that's what we said yesterday, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So therefore, you could say that's the reason why it's different. By people there is, so therefore maybe he could have some sort of value even though he's dead man walking or whatever. Alright,
so let's see how the rest of this Gemara plays out.
Right.
But Chazi L'Mekam Kamei. But the traffic could still stand over there, right? Meaning he could still, who says he can't mop the floor? He had some, look at what Rashi says. But Chazi L'Mekam Kamei, L'Shar said it could still work for him. Ava Pishinechlecha Ragla L'Mayla Ben Arkuva. Because there the Gemara says, it's a big Gemara in Chulin about this, that once if his leg got cut off at a certain spot, so he's going to bleed out, basically he's going to bleed out and die. A nick of Krum HaMoyach, or maybe some membrane in his head got ruptured, so Roy L'Sher's Kal, he's still able to do some light work, he could set the table, he could clean up the table, I don't know if he could wash the dishes, but he's still capable of doing something. So Zakti Gemara, no, we're talking about B'Menovel L'Mukashchin. So it's not just that he can't, it's disgusting to look at him. And he's also a treifa. So in such a case, he's a manovel and he's a treifa. So then we can't. Then we're not going to give him any chances to do anything over here. Okay, fine. The Gemara is going to continue with another shaila in the world of chatzi eved chatzi mecharin. Bari lu reflecting Gemara shaila. Mish chatzi eved chatzi mecharin shekidish ba'ascherin ma'u. What's the halacha if a chatzi eved chatzi mecharin ran over to Bas Yisrael? A regular ba'ascherin is mekadosh her. He gave her $1 and what happens now? Imtim Zalemer Ben Yisrael Shem Bas Yisrael Hiskachi Lechatim Mekudeshes. So if a Ben Yisrael goes over to a Bas Yisrael and gave her $1 instead, I want to be Mekadosh half of you, the Chazi Lekule. But by the Bas Yisrael, he could always marry the entire Bas Yisrael if he wanted to. He's just trying to be funny over here, and he's saying only for half.
Because he's half himself.
He is half,
he's
so
in
he
the
can't.
Twilight Zone, basically.
Right. So over here, he's not roy to be fully married, right? Right? We should say this. Some kind of roy like that, that'll be entirely knocked out. V'imtim zlemer ben Yisrael mekadosh chatzi isha enu mekudeshes. The shire it's ben Yisrael mekadosh chatzi isha enu mekudeshes. So maybe we should say imtim zlemer. Maybe we'll say that a Yisrael that was mekadosh half a isha is not mekudeshes. So there's something where the shire b'kinyanoi because he left out a chelik. The reason is because he didn't do the kinyan 100%. Every kinyan that you do, you got to do 100%. In this case, he didn't do the kinyan 100%. Well, Eved lo shire b'kinyanoi. But the Eved didn't leave anything out from his kinyan. He is only 50%, so it's a different story.
Or to the extent that he doesn't, his kinyan itself is limited because he's an Eved himself.
So right, so I think that might be the more of the answer like that because he can't. Even if he wants to make a bigger kinyan, he can't. His kinyan is be'etzem chopped in half, which would get us to think that maybe he shouldn't be doing this business, and he can't really be doing this.
Exactly. Whereas at least with it.
So what's halacha Tashuma? Let's bring a raya. Hey, we're going to go back to the Gemara that we saw. Mem Beis Amud Aleph. Hey, Mr. וחצי Eved וחצי ben Chorין. If he or his shor killed somebody that's an Eved, and that's half Eved, half a ben Chorין, nois in chatzi knas l'rabbi, he gives half the knas to the master. Chatzi kaver liyarshav, v'amrit kedusha v'lav kedushin yarshav minole. But if you're going to say that his kedusha never went through, then how does he have yarshim? Chatzi kaver liyarshim, where does that go? Right? So does it go to himself? Doesn't sound like it, right? Because Mela, the Chatzi Knas goes to the rabbi, and the Chatzi Kaifer goes to the Yarshav, right? So where do his Kedushin go? L'chayr, they should go to the Yarshim. So the Yarshim in Nole. I'm trying to see if there's Rashi here. No. So Omer Avada Barabak Sha'osei Treifa. We're talking about where it's not that he killed him all the way, he killed him most of the way. And he made him a Treifa. And the Havale command the Katle, Rashi, the Havale command the Katle, it's as if he killed him Havale Lenafshe. So who's the Yarshim? Himself. Umay Yarshim Nafshe. Who's going to Yarshim him? Himself. Why? Because there really are no Yarshim here. Because he's an Eved.
Right, but the whole terminology of Yarshim, I mean, I know the Gemara is trying to define what Yarshim is.
Right. It just means means the area where the money. It just means a place where the money can go.
So why not just? I mean,
it's like the Mishnah says that the Kohen's got to take off truma and put it from one pocket into the other. No, but by a Kohen giving him truma, Taka has to give it to another Kohen. He can't keep it for himself.
Right.
It's Xer Bashas. It's Xer Rabbanon.
The question is, how do they have Yorushim at all? That's the question.
Yeah.
From the freeman side, from the free side.
Right.
Basically.
So here he's got really stuck because we know the Gemara says in a lot of places Eved and Lechais. There's no Yichus by Avod.
Right.
This guy Hutnish Ken Yoshim. Anyways, because he's an Eved. That's the Metzias. So where's the money going to go? So that's what the Gemara has to say, L'navshei. Because that would be the avenue where the money would go on the side that he's a Ben Chayrim. That's how you have to look at it. Okay.
Or unless his status changed at some point, that he was a slave, and then his status completely changed from slave to free. And as a result of being free, he acquired...
He's a Chatzi Eved, Chatzi Ben Chorין.
Yeah, so the Gemara's going to answer this now. Omar Rava Zok Rava, Shtei Chuvas B'Davar. Two answers over here. Chada the Yarsh of Katani. One teretz says that we're talking about Yarshim. So, it's going to the Yarshim. We're not saying that it's going to himself, right? But it's Kaifer who? It's Kaifer. And it's not Mominous. So Kaifer has a different status. Let's see Rashi. The Bishlama Knas, the Loik Sivbe Misa El Negicha. It doesn't say Misa, by Knas it says Negicha Shinemar. Im Eved Yigach Hashor. So Igel Ukbek Shasei Treifa. Aval B'Kaifer Shal Ben Cherik Sivbe Hemis Isha. So it's one thing that you could tell me that he made him a treifa, because it's one thing you could tell me that when the shor was nogchay, so he made him a treifa, because it doesn't say misa over there. But by kaifer of ben chayrin, meaning which we spoke yesterday, that there's kaifer by ben chayrin as well. So over there it says v'hemis isha. So it says misa. So treifa misa means all the way misa, not treifa. So treifa is not going to work here, right? So the Amar Rish Lakish kaifer in mishtalim elul achar misa. And Rish Lakish says it's beferish. The kaifer you only pay kaifer after the guy's 100% dead, right? It was voted. It was rated as the number one joke of the year. It was many years ago. The guy was hiking with his friend up some mountain somewhere, and he calls the police and he calls 911 and he says, I think my friend is dead. So, the guy I'm hiking with is dead. So he says, they ask him, are you sure he's dead? They hear 2 gunshots. Yeah, now he's dead, right? So when you're paying kaifer, it has to be that you're sure that he's dead. Elo marava roy lital ve'enloi. So it's roy lital ve'enloi. So Rashi Roy Lita the Palga Lav Bar Knasa, who Allah Bar Koifer. Half of this person is Roy to take the money. Why? Because he's half and half. So he's a half not Bar Knas, and he's a half Bar Koifer. Ve'ein loy, shehare meis. Ve'yarshim ein loy, sheyigvu. He died, and he doesn't have any yarshim to collect this money. V'zeh ha'mazik zacha b'masha b'yodeh. And the mazik is going to be zaycha with what he has. Meaning the mazik's not going to have to pay anything because there's nobody to pay. And la'olam we're talking about when the guy died, and not when the guy became a treifa. B'hachi k'omar. Noisen chati knas l'rabbi, v'chati koifer roy linosin l'yarshim im hayu l'yarshim. If he would have yarshim, you would give it to them. But he don't got no yarshim over here, right? You know, we always say in my family, we like saying this joke, you know, the girl goes on a date, so they tell her you have to ask 3 questions, right? They have to ask family, food, and philosophy, right? So family, do you have a brother? Food, do you like noodles? And philosophy, if you would have a brother, would he like noodles? Right? So that's what we're saying over here. If he would have yarshim, then it would go to the yarshim. But Lamais, he doesn't because he's an Eved, or he's worse than an Eved. Okay, weiter. Omar Rava, kashem sham mekadosh chatzi isha enim mekudeshas, kach chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascherin sheniskacha ein kedusha kedushin. Rava says the same way that if a person is mekadosh and half a isha, the kedushin doesn't go through. So too, if someone is mekadosh a chatzi shivcha, chatzi bascherin, the kedushin doesn't go through. Meaning, even if you give her kedushin, the kedushin doesn't work. Dorash Rabba bar Rav Huna, kashem sham mekadosh chatzi isha enim mekudeshas, kach chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascherin sheniskacha enim mekudeshas. And Rabbi Bar Huna says that somebody is mekadosh a chatzi isha, it's also in mekadeshas the same way that a chatzi shiv chatzi bascherin is sheniskacha in mekadeshas. Amalei Rav Chisda mi dami. Could you compare the 2 cases? Hasam shai b'kinyani, hachalei shai b'kinyani. Right? In the case of bas chayrin, so what are you being mekadosh a half a free person for? That you don't have to do that, but by an abed again, you're being mishar. Saying you're not being mishar in the kinyan. There is no, like you said before, it's not shaykh a kinyan in such a case. So hadar ukim Rabba bar Rav Huna amar alei v'darash. So he wanted to correct himself. So he was Zakrashi Hemed Meturgaman Lefanav Latsav Lidrash. The guy got up, clapped on the bima, and the Meturgaman, they always had a middleman that, you know, the Rosh Hashiva would talk low, right, and he wouldn't, he would say whatever he would say, and the Meturgaman would go and explain it to the crowd. So he was Uki Amar Ale. So whenever you see it in the Gemara, it means that he was Mamad and Turgaman. You have it a lot of times. Rashi doesn't speak it out, and each time it's interesting that Rashi mentions it over here. And he says like this: The pasuk says in Yeshaya that the machshela, the stumbling block, should be tachas yodecha. Why should you keep a stumbling block tachas yodecha? What's the point in that? So a person does not fully understand the Rei Torah only if he's nichshel. Which means, Rashi explains, I'm not going to read the whole Rashi, but Rashi says that a person is not oimid on the truth of the Divrei Torah until he stumbles. He'll make a mistake. And they'll embarrass him, they'll call him out for it. Oh, you Amorit, you don't know what you're talking about. You missed the Gemara, you missed the Mishnah, you missed the Brisa, right? So Afani, v'hunaysin leiv, u'meven, so he's going to be much more careful next time he's passing a shaila, next time he passes halacha, to know, to be more, to pay attention, to be more accurate in his psak. And so too, I made a mistake and I want to be chayzer. So we know that the Gemara says that, interestingly enough, you know, this is a case where somebody paskin wrong and he's correcting himself. But b'chalal, when it comes to Torah, it says Gati Matzasi Tamer. And what's a pshat Matzasi? What's a pshat that it's like a mitzvah, right? Because even after a person's mi'ageh, it's lav dafka that he's going to get to the pshat. That's still considered. It's still considered like a mitzvah because it could just not necessarily from your work as some siyata d'shmai that you're getting that has nothing to do with this. But here, you know, how do you get good experience, right? From good judgment. Where does good judgment come from? Making a mistake l'chatchila, and then you know, it starts off with bad judgment. Then you made a mistake, and then you learn from your mistake. Then you have good judgment. That's called experience.
Exactly.
So that's what Rabbi Bar Huna is doing. That's what he's saying. L'chayra, this vart of getting good experience is what this Gemara is saying. Okay. Even though we said that somebody's mekadosh, half isha is not mekadosh, but the truth of the matter is that if someone's mekadosh, chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascheren, the kedushin does go through. My time, what's the pshat? Because Hosam Shai Bekinyonai. Over there, by a Chati Isha, so you weren't Makadosh the whole Isha. But Hochal Shai Bekinyonai. Over here, he's not leaving out any part of the Kinyan. He's being Makadosh the parts that he could be Makadosh. Okay. Omer Rav Sheiches. Kishem Shem Makadosh Chati Isha and Makadosh. Kachet Yishiv Chetz Vaskren Shaskacha. Ein Kiddushay Kedushin, like we just said. When Lach Zechad of Lema, if a person's going to think, Tshuva ledavar zamer ezer sheshanim tzech lekritz v'haftalim v'das shivcha ruva ezu zupti bein v'tichat shivcha tzchayrin v'aslav everything. Okay, so ezi shivcha charufa. What's a shivcha charufa that the pasuk is talking about? Haftalim v'dasa that the Gemara mentioned. Where do we see it? That was on Memal Famad Beis. So shechetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascharen hamurasa le'eved ivri. We're talking about a shivcha charufa that had kedushin with eved ivri. Alma Basas Rusihi. So you see that this Chetzi Shivcha Chetzi Baskarin can have an erison. So Amalois, he told him, Emarlois, if somebody would tell you such a thing, Amarlois, so you tell him, Klachet to Rabbi Shmuel. Go to Rabbi Shmuel. Shu Oimer B'Shivcha Knanis Hamurasa Levet Ivri Shivcha. So we're talking about where a Shivcha Knanis had erison with an Evet Ivri. So, meaning because like this, Rabbi Shmuel says that Dibra Tarik Lashon B'nei Adam, which we spoke out of Memal Famad Beis. And the svara is that v'haftalim of dasa does not mean a chatzi shivcha v'chatzi bascharen. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a shivcha knanis that had no pidyon whatsoever, and that's what the pasuk is talking about. And she had erison with an eved ivri, right? So the question is, how can a chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascharen? I'm sorry, not a chetzi shivcha, but a shivcha knanis have erison with an eved ivri, right? V'shivcha knanis basas rusihi. So what do you say? My meuresas miuchedes doesn't mean meuresas mamish. It means miuchedes. That what? So chanami my meuresas miuchedes. So it's over here in our Gemara that we're talking about a chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascharen. We're not talking about etzim mekudeshes. We're talking about miuchedes. What does that mean? Let's see. Rashi. Second, the bottom line of Rashi. Xeris hakazavi the mechayev Allah asham. That if a person does marry, has erison with a shivcha knanis, he's mechuyev an asham. Ha'il v'yichdua le'eved ivri hamutaba, because an eved ivri is mutar in shivcha knanis. If somebody else is mekadosh her when she has erison with the eved ivri, so then he's going to be chayav an asham. Meaning that there is such a concept that an eved ivri is allowed to marry a shivcha knanis. Okay. Omer of Chisda. Chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bascharen shenaskata l'Ruvain. So the Chetzi Shivcha Chetzi Bascharen had a kedusha with Reuven, Minishtachra, and then she got freed, right? Kaifin, right? Because of an Eskachel of Shimon, and now she went and married Shimon, who's Reuven's brother, right? And Reuven never gave her a get, right? But her status changed because now she's a Bascharen. The Eved part was married to Reuven, and then the complete Meshukra part belongs to.
Well, are you sure it's the Shivcha part that got married to Reuben? Because it's a chetzi. She's a chetzi.
But that's what I mean. But so what I mean is that by the time she got married to Shimon, she was completely nishtacher. So,
sorry.
So at that point, she basically turns into another being. That's the whole.
Right. So the whole kedusha is a different kind of kedusha.
That's why it catches.
The pashtus.
Right.
Right. Umesu shneihem, and then both of them died. Reuben and Shimon died. So Misyabemes a Levi. So she does yibum with the third brother, Levi, because after all, it's the husband's brother, right? And I don't consider it Eisha Shnei Mesim. Why? Because you always have a problem that when you're going to have these two brothers, that it's going to be a problem of Eisha Shnei Mesim. Zok Rashi. So Lemar Chetzi Haisa Lazeh V'Chetzi Lazeh. We don't say that she belonged halfway to this and halfway to Reuven and halfway to Shimon. And she's coming from both of them. The Gemara says in Yavames that you have three brothers that are married to three totally random women. One of the brothers died, and then the second brother did the kedushin for Yibum, which is called Maimer, and then he dies. So So she's got to do Kalitza, not Yibam. You can only have one Zika at a time. So, being that this person has two Zikas, so we're saying that you can't, that it doesn't work. Because that's what the pasuk says. Vizu al yidei marmel yatzam zikas yibam arishan kula, u'b'meitzaza chalala zikas yibam hasheni. There's somewhat, she never left the original zika, and she's still a little bit stuck with the second zika. Aval hochalei zika shnaim Allah. But over here, you don't have the zika of both of them. The chazminai kedushin gemurim, right? That's what we just spoke out. That one of these brothers, she had kedushin gemurim with either chlav klum, and the other one is nothing because she's not a shivcha anymore at all. We should plug the damaroi del el masabgul and heminai have a kedushin. And because of the machlekes amaram previously in the Gemara, what's the status of somebody who gives such a kedushin? So we're mesupik. So the hashta the mesul who misyabem is the levi mimanavshach, and that's what we're saying. So in kedushin the Ruven kedushin the shemelav kedushin. If Ruven's kedushin, who Ruven was mekadusher when she was still a chatzi shivcha וחצי bas Khairin, so then Shimon's kedushin is no good. Right? The kedusha, the Shimon kedusha, the Ruven lav kedusha. So it's going to come out that whichever one's kedushin is going to work, the kedusha of the other one is not chal at all.
Cancel it out.
Yeah. Itmar, weiter. Chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bas Khairin sheniskadel l'Ruven. See again, you have a story of chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bas Khairin that was niskadish to Ruven, minishtacharo, and then she got freed. V'chozor v'niskadel l'Shimon, and after she was mishachar herself, Shimon gave her kedusha. So Rav Yosef Bar Choma Omer Rav Nachman Poka Kedusha Rishon. Rav Yosef Bar Choma said in the name of Rav Nachman that the Kedusha Rishon fall away. Rav Zera Omer Rav Nachman Gomer Kedusha Rishon. This solidifies the first Kedusha. Zok Rashi Gomer Kedusha Rishon Al Yidei HaShecher Gomer D'Arachav Habaleh Ba'Asham B'Malkas Haya. I feel amazing. Kan Be'elach Habaleh B'Misa. Because till now she was only a shivcha. So somebody who was mizana with her is going to get only Asham and Malkas. Meaning even if it was b'meisa, but mikan ve'eloch, somebody does it, it's going to be b'misa. So you see that it definitely changed for a much stronger status. Amr b'zeira, kabasei didi mistabra, it's mistabra to say like me, why dechsiv lo yumsu ki lo chufasha? Ha chufasha, yumsu. You're not going to die, the person's not going to die because she was not chufasha, she wasn't freed yet. Ha chufasha, if she was freed, yumsu, that's when the misa is going to come on to the person who is mezana with her. Again, this would be going according to the other Tanam, not like Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Srila Dachi Kamar. Einan chayav and misam shemeis eshes ish ki lo chufasha. But la'achar kedushin chufasha lebasar achiyumsu. Davle eshes ish gemura. Because till the chufasha, so she wasn't considered an eshes ish, right? Because she's married to, I don't even know if you can call this married to anything. I mean, married to some kind of married to something, but at some irregular kind of kedusha, right? So halchofasha is yumsu. So amalei abayla tanu dvei b'shmal damar b'shivcha k'nan some rest of it every yachanam dechi chufsha yumsu. So now, getting back to what we said before on Amud Aleph about Rabbi Shmuel, that this pasuk of chufasha does not mean the chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bas Khairin. It means somebody. It means a shivcha k'nanis that was ureses to an eved ivri. So over here we would say the that there should be misa over here as well. That she was freed and then she went and did kedushin again. So to in our case also, we could be talking about where she was freed and then she was kaddish nochamo. So what's the difference? So if someone's going to be mizana with her now, there's going to be misa. Amar Rav Huna bar Gintin, Amar Rav Yitzchak. There was a story of a chetzi shivcha v'chetzi bas Khairin that they forced the master to free her. Kiman Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. Why? Why do you have to free her? Yeah, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka says in Yevamisal, Shneim hu omer v'yavaru chaysam elikim v'yomer pruvu milu esaret. The Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka holds. See, we spoke before back in the Mishnah Mem Aleph Amud Beis that the ish. So there's the ish ve'isha. The ish is mitzvah and peri v'rivya, not the isha. Right? That's how we know one generally, right? The Ran at the beginning of the second parak conclusion says that even though she's not mitzvah in the mitzvah, she's a misayaya in the mitzvah. Which, obviously, that's a good way of saying that, because otherwise what's going on? Right? But in the mitzvah of Shevis, l'Shevis Yitzhar l'Chayr, she's mechuyavis. Right? But Zakti Gemara over here, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka holds al shneim hu omer.
Why don't you say here?
That is by Shevis also.
Why don't we say it's by Shevis instead of good?
Yeah. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka holds that the mitzvah of Pir v'Rivya is on Isha as well. So Zak the Gemara, Amrav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Loy. It's not the pshat. It's not because we hold like Rabbi Yechon and that they're forced to free her. Mela. So this is the question. Mela and Eved, you have to free him because he's mechuyev in Pirivya, and he's gonna have to have children. But Isha's not mechuyev in the mitzvah. So what do you got to free her for, right? So Zak the Gemara. The Gemara originally is.
They don't consider Messiah.
Messiah is not enough
to
free her, obviously. So Zak the Gemara, it's going b'shitas Rabbi Yechon and that's why they freed her. Zak the Gemara loy. Amrav Nachman Bar Yitzchak loy. Minig hefker hayunayagim ba. There was a lot of news going on with this shivcha, so she wasn't miyuchedes for a specific person. She wasn't really so careful about what was going on, and she wasn't miyuchedes for a specific person. As we spoke before, that there's a concept of being miyuchedes for a person, even if it's not going to be kedushin, and even if it's going to be a halfway kedushin, but there should be some kind of miyuchedes that it shouldn't just be entirely out of control, because things were getting out of control. So then, therefore, the Gemara says that they freed her because it was minig hafkan agoba. Once you free her, she's like a regular bas Yisrael, and the chachamim go out of their way. Shaktu chachamim al takanas b'nei Yisrael, that there shouldn't be like any sort of minig hafker when it comes to b'nei Yisrael. Okay, Zok the Mishnah, and this is halacha that we mentioned on Lamed Tes already. That hamoicher avdei levei kechavim, a person who sells his eved to a guy, oilo chutz laaretz, he's yatzav ben chayrin. He goes free. So. Yeah, Tanu Rabbanon. Yeah, we learned in a brisa.
Yeah, the air. I don't want to shut off the conditioner.
Yeah. You can switch your chair because this chair is
You prefer that chair? You got it.
Tanu Rabbanon. Hamoicher avdei levei kechavim yatzel lecherus. Like the Mishnah, somebody who sells his eved to a goy, yatzel lecherus, he goes free v'tzarech get shulchan mirabbi rishon. It's familiar. We saw this over there. And he needs to get shikhr from his original owner. Amr B'Shem Ben Gamliel, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Where he never wrote the star. Who never wrote the star? That's what we're going to get to.
The owner.
If he wrote a star to sell it to the guy, so then that star that he's writing, the star mechira of the evet to sell to the guy, that is in and of itself the star shikhr for the eved. What's the lashon of oinoi? Right, it's earlier on the Vezchesem with Beis, right? In Chumash we have it. Reishis oini. Right, Yaakov said to Reuven. Where is it?
That doesn't invalidate the sale because the guy that's buying it wants to buy a slave. Him giving him the contract emancipates him. Basically writing that contract.
It's with a guy, so you have to know if it works the same way. Oh, here, Amrav Sheisha Shekaisim Lov Oinei Vafilu B'Shabbos. Oinei Shtar Mechira Kamei Vahu Oinei Shtar Tzeitzin Al Shmai Gemar Bav Basra. Doesn't say Reishis Oini. That I second. Okay. Either way. So, because of Lov Oinei Zeh Shekhrui. Meaning the only time the eved is going to go to the guy was when he didn't write a star. But if he wrote a star, then that's going to free him. My oinoi. What's oinoi? Rav Sheish has the cause of lehochi. This is what he writes in the star. You're going to say like this, the grass is always greener on the other side. I don't like these Jewish people. They make me clean shalom pots. It's dirty. It's disgusting. I don't want to do it. Right? So he says, listen, the goyim, they don't need chalom. Their kitchen's not so dirty. It's not so bad. It's not so bad the cleaning over there. So Lamaisi, he's going to go to the goyim. What's going to happen? They have all kinds of other nonsense, other stuff, right? And it's not kishmak. And he's going to say, listen, I want to go back to the yid. Could he go back to the yid? So he writes in the star, look, when you run away from the guy because you don't want to clean up his parties, I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah, right of no return, basically. That's it.
Once you go to him,
one-way street.
That's a goodbye.
That's it.
That's what he writes.
No refunds.
Yeah. Lava and Eved Kechavim. He borrowed money from the Eved Kechavim. Kevin she'osle Eved Kechavim nimusay yatzol lecheres. Once the guy does his nimus, he's yatzol lecheres. Nimus generally means like the nimus usually means like the ethics and like moral conduct. So my nimusay, what's nimusay? Rav Huna bar Yehuda Nashki. What's Nashki? a stamp that he would seal on the star. The simon, I'm sorry, not on the star, but on the eved. He branded him, right? So Zok Rashi Chaysem, the simon avdu shetaylan la'avadim tabareim. They would wear it around the neck. They would wear some kind of necklace, maybe with the name, maybe with some kind of tag on it to know who they belong to, right? That's what the Maral speaks about. That's the concept of Bris Milah, to show that we are Avdei Hashem. Most of Rav Sheshes, Shrek of Sheshes, a stira from a brisa. Ha'arisin v'checharais v'arisei batei avos v'evek kechavim shemashkan sedeulius shemashkin sedeulius Israel aval pisha asleni musay peturim min ha'maiser. What's going on over here? Arisin is Yisrael shenasa aris levek kechavim. So what are arisin and what are chechirais? So an aris gets a set amount. An aris gets lemechel shorvia. Depending on the produce, that's how much you're going to get. You're always going to get a percentage.
Sharecropper.
Yeah. And a chechirais, however you say it, so they always get the same salary no matter what.
Percentage.
Yeah. Not a percentage. They get the same salary.
They get the same percentage no matter how much.
No matter how much the produce, right? Our aris is depending on the produce and the fine, and the chakira is not. So our reason is Yisrael shenasa aris levikechavim bekarka ha'evikechavim. So the Yisrael becomes a sharecropper for the guy in the guy's property because sovar, and over here we hold yesh kinin levikechavim be'eretz lafkia miyad meiser. That a guy, it's positive. There's a huge machlekes tanoim. The Gemara in Gitin earlier mentioned it, and it comes up all over the place in Zram, and it comes up all over the place, and that there's a kinyan, yesh kinyan levikechavim be'eretz lafkia miyad meiser. That if a guy owns property in Eretz Yisrael, so it's not mechuyev meiser. So what's the deal with what's the yid? Where's the yid holding with meiser over here? Hey, it's a guy. It's goyish of fruits. We take a meiser from a guy. So what's going on? So you have aris, so you have chakirais and arisei batei avos. What's arisei batei avos? Akrashi koloyma arisus kavua va'imedus me'avos shayu avosem shal Yisrael arisei b'karkazul avos rav gechavim zeh. I mean, this was a Messiah for hundreds of years. This Jew is working for this goy family. Okay, as an aris. Va'afilu hachi lo have kekanu liYisrael. Elish levekechavim is still not considered that it belonged to the yid. It belonged to the goy. Upartam and amaisa Yisrael zabechelkai. And the Yisrael who gets a chelik from this guy's property, which on the svara, that on the tzad and the machlekes, that there is yesh kin levkechom b'Yisrael kin miyad meiser, so he's going to be parted from meiser. So what's going on? So, or a guy that gave a collateral, to a yid, that gave his field as a collateral to a yid, aval pisha also leini musa p'turim min ha'meiser, even though he did to the yid his nimus, his part of an amaiser. V'isal gadaytach nashki. But if you're going to say that nimusai means nashki to brand it, to make this thing with the necklace, to have like the label or the tag for the eved, so sada bas nashki. Can you put a stamp on a sada to say that this is the sada that belongs to this owner? Allah Rav Sheshes zman. What does it mean zman? Im loy pratichel zman pleini yechalot loch. That if I don't pay you back after a certain time, then you're going to be able to keep the field. So that's what nashki means.
So nashki doesn't mean is a different type.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to clarify, the land itself is owned by the
goy.
By the goy.
Uh-huh.
And is there any difference between saying ovet kochavim? He's ovet kochavim. That's the term they use for a goy, or it's dafka ovet kochavim.
I think it's interchangeable.
Is there a chiluk or is there no?
So there's a sefer that I have on Masechet Avodah Zarah that goes through all the differences. You know, a nochri, a goy, and a kechavim.
I'm asking because nafka mina having to do with ma'aseh. I mean, maybe it would not be the case if it was a nochri itself. Maybe dafka.
It's dafka because the guy's
exactly.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's an interesting question, but I don't think that it's any difference. Allah over here. But the interesting say from Masechet Avodah Zarah, Seder Yaakov, it's called. There's a lot of interesting things in the back of the sefer. It's someone from Switzerland, and he has a whole maracha there about what the yashkes and all the different holidays and the Avodah Zarah and all kinds of things.
My Gemara switches nachri for Ovet Kechavim. It uses Ovet Kechavim.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that there were different kufas. There were different kufas, and the girsais are based on what they were censoring, and what they were censoring when and where. It's a very big. There's a lot. Well, the different kisvayah say different things. I mean, you could spend all night on this. But this is this is a very gishmaka topic.
Of course, you have some of the zonish is the question that the zonish. Because if you find this kisvayah, the Meiri rule.
Right, the Meiri is a relatively new region. I mean,
Right. Yeah, so like, what do you do? You know, like he passed him something, but
some people were still weary of it.
Right,
Yeah. So if Isal Kedai Nashki Yisada, so then Isal Kedai Nashki, that Numusa means Nashki, so Sada Bas Nashki, Elam Rav Shesh Zman. So Kasha Zman Azman. So what's the Kasha? Because the Gabe Eved Chashuv Lamachira. By an Eved, when he does Nimusa, which is Nashki, so then it's a good sale. But Gabe Sada Lat Machira. When it comes to a Sada, we're saying that's not a good sale. So what? How could you decide what's what? Meaning even though the tie to the word is different, and we're implying a different understanding, a different definition, we're saying that halach is going to be the same because we're using the same word. So like kasha, had mata zimne, had loy mata zimne. One is before the time came, and one is after the time came. Had mata zimne, the time came, the hakta gabe eved. So that's why we say that Kemesh Aslani Musa is just a lecherus. That's why he's not stuck by the goy anymore. But Aval Gabe Eved Matazimne. I'm sorry. Hadalei Matazimne. El Gabe Eved Matazimne Tzarich Lemeimar. Right. So l'chayra by an Eved Matazimne. So why don't we speak that out? Right. So Ela Idi v'Idi Deloi Matazimne. V'Loi Kasha Ela Gufa Ela Peri. So we're talking about Sai by Eved and Sai by Sada Deloy Matazimne, that is before the time of the Chayiv, the due date, right? But like Kasha Halagufa Halaperi. So what's that mean? So Gabe Eved the cover by Malagufa. Shem Layitin Ado says man ye Gufa Chalut Levikachavim, that his guf, the actual Eved is going to belong to the Goy, Umay Akshav Hayim Mishtabed by, and ready from now. Let's say 30 days before that, he was already working for him. Became in the zilzal, but the kanta the rabbanon the asulim ker eved la'oivik kechavim konsu. Because this person was mezalzel in the takana the rabbanon that it's also to sell your eved to a guy, they gave him a knas. Be avagav the loimatazimne. That's why we're saying that he goes free. But got beisada the kava loisman leperis akshav leitaychel leperis. Right now he can't eat the fruits. Right, he can only eat the fruits once it's chalut once the due day comes. Right, so how come by Eved it doesn't work like that? Because by the Eved he was mezalzel and takonos chachamim. By the Paris, so there was no problem with that. But when it comes to the Paris, he says you wait until I pay you back. If I don't pay you back on that day, so it's going to be chal from that day. Okay, or we could say that the pshat is that the field we're talking about that he borrowed from the guy that could go into love and then you're going to come and take the karka away from me and it's going to belong to you, right? So meaning it's till the yid came to be mimashkin, not necessarily dependent on gufa and peri, the due date or not due date, but is he going to make it a mashkin? Is he not? It's not necessarily going to make it a mashkin because on the time that he's going to pay back on time. He doesn't need to take it.
He waited to execute on the on collection.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.